Food insecurity has direct and indirect consequences across the lifespan of any nation. Therefore, creating a balance for adequate food supply to address shortage of food on the tables of many Nigerians is of paramount concern for the Tinubu administration. Well, in demonstration of commitment towards addressing food shortage, the federal government recently announced the immediate dispatchment of a total of 740 lorry loads of rice to the 36 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory to cushion the effect of food insecurity across the country. With each state, including the FCT, taking delivery of 20 trucks containing 1,200 bags of 25 kg of rice. Now, the food supply is part of intervention to Nigerians aimed at alleviating persistent food crisis on one hand, and on the other, ensuring effective distribution of these grains is one aspect that should not be taken for granted. This is not the first time the federal government is making efforts to ameliorate the sufferings of Nigerians through diverse interventions, and this move, experts say, requires collaborative efforts, especially at a sub-national level, in ensuring that the food supply gets to the targeted persons, talking about the vulnerable groups. Already, some states have swung into action for the distribution of the grains to the people as trucks arrive their respective states. On Weekend File tonight, our focus is on federal government's food palliatives, and our guest is Mr. Kabiru Ibrahim, President of All Farmers Association of Nigeria. We'll bring you reports from across the states on the distribution measures already taken. Thank you for joining us. This is Weekend File. I'm Ruth Aguele. First, let's bring you the news. Let's inform you now that President Bola Tinubu has arrived in Accra, the Ghanaian capital, to participate in the 6th mid-year coordination meeting of the African Union, which begins tomorrow. President Tinubu is the chairman of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of States and Government. He departed Abuja on Saturday today and arrived at the Kotoka International Airport, Accra, hours later. President Tinubu is expected to address the meeting on the status of regional integration across various areas in Africa, highlighting the achievements and challenges encountered in West Africa since the last meeting in Nairobi, Kenya, that was in July 2023. He is also expected to present the 2024 report on the state of the ECOWAS community. In other news, Cross Rivers State Governor Basi Otu is to lead a 262-member APC National Campaign Council for the September 21 Edo State governorship election. Jude Abugu reports that during the inauguration of the campaign council in Benin City, former Deputy Governor of the state, Philip Shaibu, led some supporters and members of the Legacy Coalition to defect to the All Progressives Congress.
The inauguration of the campaign council received a new buzz the moment Edo Deputy Governor Philip Shaibu arrived the venue with his supporters. He announced their defection to the APC and were received by the party's national chairman and other APC leaders.
On behalf of all of us in Legacy Coalition, we have come to join APC, our own. Our incoming governor and the incoming deputy governor, they have already produced a blueprint for the development of Edo State. When performance matches the hope of the people, then prosperity is created. We will go all out to execute this project to the point of victory.
We are coming to restore our educational system back. We are coming to restore the security system back.
The inauguration also witnessed the unveiling of a book, 40 Leadership Qualities of Monday Okpolo. In Benin, Jude Abugu, NTA News.
Well, apologies there for referring to the Deputy Governor as former. If you recall, there was a court injunction stating his reinstatement as a Deputy Governor. Let's turn to other issues. The Minister of Budget and National Planning, Atiku Bagudu, says the projects captured in the proposed 6.2 trillion naira amendment to the 2024 Appropriation Act are innovative, as they would show up revenue through increased economic activities. He said this during an engagement with the Senate Committee on Appropriation. National Assembly correspondent Lami Ali reports.
2 days after President Tinubu transmitted to the National Assembly the proposed amendments to the 2024 Appropriation Act to make room for key infrastructure projects and the national minimum wage, the lawmakers are engaging the Minister of Budget and National Planning for details. Atiku Bagudu explains that the review is part of President Tinubu's resolve to confront infrastructure deficit, which is why projects such as the Lagos-Calabar, the Trans-Sahara and the Sokoto-Badagry highways feature in the amendments.
This is where the proposed sum of 6.222 trillion will be deployed. These are roads which cumulatively cross 23 states and which we believe are transformational.
It's divided into two, 3 trillion to recurrent and 3.2 trillion to renewed group infrastructure and critical infrastructure. No borrowing plan has been identified to fund this budget. It is being funded as a result of increase in revenue.
The meeting was an opportunity for lawmakers to seek insight on some other economic policies of government.
The gas revolution in terms of CNG, and we as a legislature, we also think that there should be a legal framework put in place for the implementation of this program.
The funds budgeted for in the supplementary 2024 budget, is it to cover the design phase or the flag off of the construction proper?
The proposed 70,000. Will this proposal cover it? And you have answered it.
The committee asked the minister to provide more information from ministries, departments and agencies of government that would execute the projects to enable early approval of the amendments. From the National Assembly, Lami Ali, NTA News.
Vice President Kashim Shettima has launched the multi-billion naira mega agricultural empowerment program by the Yobe state government at the August 27th stadium, where the Vice President represented President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The Vice President was accompanied by the governors of Yobe, Mai Malabuni, Borno State, Professor Babagana Umar Zulum, Hope Uzodimma of Imo State, and the former President of the Senate, Ahmed Ibrahim Lawan. The Vice President and his team thereafter visited the Emir of Damaturu at his palace. We'll bring you full details in subsequent bulletin. Cheering news for commercial drivers as more commercial vehicles will soon run on compressed natural gas in Lagos, as around 150 drivers have been presented with the conversion kits. Now, the initiative of the federal government is aimed at alleviating economic challenges. The national coordinator of the presidential CNG initiative, Michael Uluwagbemi, said 30,000 vehicles nationwide will be covered within 90 days. Michael Olaleye will tell us more.
A real scenario for commercial drivers to abandon the wheels, unifying their purpose for a common cause. Here, the dotted lines were not just signed with the conversion companies, but some commercial bus drivers were presented with CNG keys to be installed in their vehicles. The beauty of this is that the federal government will not only shoulder the entire fee put at 1.2 million naira per vehicle, but key players here say this will crash the operational costs for drivers who will only need 250 naira per kilogram for compressed gas, as against more than 600 naira per litre of petrol.
CNG is cheaper, is cleaner, is safer, and is more reliable. 40% less tailpipe emission, 90% yes, pollutants put in the head. So definitely there's an advantage to using CNG for the environment. We are already flaring gas. So what we are saying is that instead of flaring gas, we should turn that gas to use of our economy.
This of commercial vehicles should come down. And if it's come down, it will affect all the sectors of the economy.
The presidential CNG initiative says 30,000 commercial buses will be covered nationwide within 90 days. In Lagos, Michael Olaleye, NTA News.
The nationwide onslaught of the federal government against illegal mining is getting more aggressive. Several suspects allegedly involved in illegal mining of gold in Yagba East local government area of Kogi State were dislodged. Mia Ogidi reports.
Moving to dare the lords of the forest. Keep moving despite being surrounded by the thick forest, because it is a national assignment and it has to be delivered, even risking one's life. Crossing rivers and land, pushing for a dreaded journey to Iye, Yobe and Insalu communities in Yagba local government area of Kogi State to put an end to illegal mining activities. Mining marshals, a detachment of the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, courtesy Minister Dele Alake-led Ministry of Solid Minerals Development, finally at the enemy's camp, as it were, a land left to its own device, the best of its nutrient and mineral resources taken away without even a kobo paid to the federal government coffers as royalties, and these are the culprits. Good enough, they realized the sabotage they have caused the nation and pleaded for forgiveness. The Civil Defense Corps officials were quite civil.
Some of them, they are already cooking food. They have to allow it to done and eat. So I'm thinking we should give them 3 days.
Some sense of repentance on the faces of the culprit, but how sincere are these signs? And if they fail to evacuate, what will be the next action? Because a similar operation was carried out recently by the mining marshal in Abia State, leading to the arrest of 8 Chinese nationals and 1 Nigerian. And trial of the suspects had commenced at the Federal High Court, Abuja Division. For those given the 5 days, the choice is theirs to either go home or go to court. Mia Ogidi, NTA News.
Only time will tell, right, Mia? In a bid to appreciate its numerous customers in Ilori and sell its products across Kwara State, the management of Good Mama Detergent, one of the leading detergent companies in Nigeria, has rewarded its customers with various cash gifts and other consolation prizes for their patronage. This was at an open market fashion show held at Ojatuntun Market in Ilori, the Kwara State capital. Aisha Abubakar Yaya reports.
Established about 15 years ago, Good Mama Detergent, which is used for all kinds of laundry and house cleaning, has become a household name in Nigerian markets and homes. Good Mama Detergent, a leading brand of Eco Supreme Resources Nigeria Limited, contains highly potent ingredients like sodium and sulfate, and it is available in 70 grams, 20 grams and 1 kilogram sachet packs. The open market fashion show is put together nationwide to show gratitude to Good Mama ambassadors in various markets across the country, and here in Ilori, fashion parade and other competitions were vied for by market women and men. Competitions were held for the best dressed in clothes category, best hair tie, best hajia category and best makeup category.
We want to use this medium to celebrate our stakeholders, which are our wholesalers, our retailers, our distributors. Most of them are mothers and they are courageous women. They have their aspirations, they have their goals, but with that, they still have that, they still have to prioritize what we call family responsibilities. So we say, let's use this medium to celebrate them. Let's come to Ilori and say, we appreciate you mothers, we celebrate you, and we want you to unwind.
These are beautiful women who, because of the nature of their jobs, may not come out to show their beauty on a daily basis. But today, as you can see from the people who are participating in the fashion show, we have a lot of beautiful people selling Good Mama.
The winners of cash prizes were appreciative of the rewards.
If you use Good Mama, you will never regret it.
Good Mama doesn't rash hands. It doesn't stain clothes. It washes clothes very well. They have improved, they entice people, they motivate people, they increase the product in the volume.
First winner went home with 300,000 naira, second with 250,000 naira, the third place winner rewarded with 150,000 naira, while others got 50, 20 and 10,000 naira. Good Mama comes in two different varieties, Flora Fresh and Lemon Fresh, and for the company, customer satisfaction will continue to be a top priority. Aisha Abakar Yahaya, NTA News.
A deliberate effort to improve productivity in all sectors of the nation's economy has been put in motion following a one-day business intelligence conference organized by the Institute of Corporate Administration held in Abuja. Francis Udojo reports that stakeholders from federal and state organizations, including the private sector, were represented.
One of the major concerns raised by speakers at the conference was the issue of lack of professionalism in most of the private and public sectors, resulting in low productivity, corruption, and job incompetency. These, they added, have affected the basic business of human resource development and modern workplace ethics.
Wherever you work, the landmark will always be there. But when it is not there, it sends the wrong signal.
In a paper titled Professionalism in the Public Service, Lack of Civility, Ineffective Communication in the Workplace are drawbacks that should be properly handled, was presented at the conference.
Professionalism is more of about attitude. It's about the way you think, about your appearance, your commitment to work, and commitment to excellence.
The Director General of NTA, who was represented, backed the Institute's Icon of Vision and Excellence Award, while the Induction Fellowship Certificate of the Institute and awards were presented to deserving individuals for upholding professional ethics.
Since his assumption of office, the Director General has been a performer. For us, as part of his management, we're delighted that an institution like the Institute of Corporate Administration of Nigeria found him worthy.
By understanding and demonstrating the importance of professionalism traits, guests at the event believe individuals can build their careers and contribute to the nation's success. Francis Udojo, NT News.
President Bola Tinubu congratulates Justice Stella Anukam on her re-election as judge of the African Court on Human and People's Rights for another 6 years term. She was re-elected at the African Union Media Coordination Meeting Executive Council in Accra, Ghana. That was on Friday. Stating his administration's support for competent Nigerians occupying international positions, President Tinubu commends the Nigerian jurists for her contributions to human rights jurisprudence in Africa. Nigeria is a state party to the African Court on Human and People's Rights, established to protect human and people's rights in Africa. All right, we'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll begin our conversation on FG's food palliatives. You don't want to miss that. Thank you for staying tuned. And before we begin the conversation on FG's food palliatives, why don't we find out how some states are faring in that regard? Well, in response to the escalating food crisis affecting the country, the federal government has been consistent in providing food items to assist vulnerable populations, especially in Borno State. Pauline Kujevana conducted a retrospective analysis of previous distributions, obtaining insights from key figures involved in the process ahead of distribution of the 20 truckloads of rice recently received from the federal government.
This initiative of palliative distribution by federal government is helping to alleviate hunger and provide support to those severely impacted by the insurgency and other vulnerable people in Borno State. The federal government has recently provided 20 truckloads of rice across all states of the federation, aimed at alleviating hunger caused by economic hardship.
The number of the vulnerable is on a high
because of the insecurity and the crisis that we've had for almost 14 years. And the state government also supported 16,000 women with wrappers and 10,000 naira cash.
None of our distribution is not being supervised by His Excellency the Executive Governor. When we go for this distribution, this is the total quantity of the items that to be distributed, and so in that, so certain percentage or ratio will go to certain population.
In the next few days, we are getting the state consignment under Professor Babagana Umar Zulum and commence immediate distribution.
Meanwhile, Borno State government is committed to providing supplementary palliatives to booster the impact of federal government assistance and address any gap. In Maiduguri, Paul Nkujevana, NTA News.
And from Cross River State, we had the state government has put necessary machinery in place to ensure effective monitoring and equitable distribution of palliatives sent by the federal government to the state. We also hear that key government officials stated this during the symbolic flag-off of federal government palliatives distribution to the vulnerable and members of the public in the state. Let's hear from Paul Abel.
NTA News visited the warehouse where the food items are stored, and the DG State Emergency Agency revealed that thousands of metric tons of maize from federal government were converted to rice and beans to meet the need of the people, as well as the state government augmenting.
There are people that need this food, and so we are going to set up, we have set up already a task force that will be going down to check in all the groups to see how far they've gone in the sharing.
This is the first phase of the distribution of the food palliatives to the leadership of various vulnerable groups to reach their members, and they include persons with disability, pensioners, traders, traditional rulers, women and youth associations, urban development sweepers, organized labor, students, security operatives, among others, across the 18 local government areas of the state, while awaiting the receipt of the second phase of the food palliatives.
The distribution of palliatives to various vulnerable groups in the state will continue for the next 2 weeks. In Calabar, Paul Abel, NTA News.
All right, let's bring in our guests, Mr. Kabiru Ibrahim, President, All Farmers Association of Nigeria. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Our pleasure to have you on Weekend File. Let's hear your reaction first. How did you take the whole federal government's intervention on the food palliatives, especially at this critical time?
Well, I think it is quite a welcome development because so many people across the country are really suffering. They are going through a lot of trouble being able to feed themselves and their children. So any effort is highly commendable. I believe that this should be augmented by all the states and local governments, especially coming at the backdrop of what the president did 2 Thursdays away, that he gave every state government 10 billion. So they should use some of that to also provide some of the needed items to augment what the federal government is doing. It's a very good step in the right direction.
Okay, we already saw Akwa Ibom State taking a very proactive initiative, just like other state government. Akwa Ibom is doubling the 24,000 bags, making it 48,000. That is highly commendable. But this task of distribution to the targeted person behoves on the state government to ensure that the right people get this palliative. What would you suggest?
Well, you find that in every state there is, you have an idea of who the vulnerable people really are. So there should be close monitoring and evaluation and transparency in the distribution so that people who do not deserve it do not take it over. People who need it are there, they are well known. They should be given this transparently. And as we people, very honest people should be made to distribute these items. And anybody found wanting in that regard should be severely punished to prevent reoccurrence.
Okay, Mr. Ibrahim, you know why I asked that question? This is not the first time we're going to hear federal government's intervention of palliatives like this. And most times you hear those persons talking about the vulnerable groups. Some, cry out that they've been left out, they didn't feel the impact. What strategic measures, can state governments take? You've talked monitoring and evaluation, but stringent measures, is that also required?
Yes, in fact, when you monitor and evaluate, you will find out how it is doing in the first instance. And those people saddled with that responsibility should be asked to explain if there is any malfeasance from their part. And anybody who comes crying that they have not been, given, you should find out the truth on that, about that statement. Because some people might just say this because they do not have enough. You can see that, maybe you are targeting 24,000 people, and then there are maybe 50, 60,000 people requiring that help. Unless you meet that requirement, definitely other people are going to come to complain. So depending on the situation, and I like the idea that the federal government treated every state equally.
Yeah.
So if you are giving Kano State, for instance, the same number as Bayelsa, of course, the people in Bayelsa will be a lot happier than probably the people in Kano, because the population there is more. So the Kano State government should understand that it needs to augment that is given, just like Akwa Ibom has done. And then, of course, Lagos State will also do the same. FCT will be a lot happier, and the FCT administration should be able to really reach out to all the vulnerable people. So this is what we must do. It's not as if this is a final thing that the federal government has given this. No, it behoves on all the state governments and local governments to come in together and see that they alleviate the sufferings of the people. And mind you, this is a very difficult situation, because if you go to the market buying, government buying will exacerbate inflation. So you need to do it carefully. You need to really find a way of doing it without causing turbulence in the whole market system.
Indeed, and I like the fact you tilted it, to the state government also holding that responsibility to augment federal government's efforts. We're seeing Borno state government. This has been a consistent trend there in the state. We've seen reports, and some other states are also picking up in that aspect. What would you advise, at the subnational, to show more efforts? Because the burden, of course, can be at the federal level alone.
You see, what you should do is don't be quiet about what you are doing. Because by announcing that you are doing it, people will now not be deceived. You see, if the federal government had just kept quiet and sent these items, some state governments might even claim that this is from them. So if the state government gives something, a local government will not claim that that is its own, but what is its own share in the contribution. So everybody should be, aware of what everybody else is doing. And if they are doing it for, let's say, elections, it will be obvious that they will get elected, because this is something good that they have done. But if you keep quiet about it, nobody knows about it, and people can now do something else with whatever you are given. So you should be able to have a lot of information on what you are doing, and there should be transparency, and you should reach out to the people who really need the help. Do not just look at it as maybe they are your political colleagues or they are whatever. Hunger has no borders. Everybody can get hungry. So everybody is involved, and this is a national cake, if you like. Everybody deserves it. So there is no question of I will give the people who like me, and I will not give the people who don't like me. This is a national treasure that is being distributed, and everybody has a right over it.
Well, I like what you said. Anybody can get hungry, just like anybody can wake up and become a farmer, right? So we'll look at farmers' perspective to, helping federal government achieve its goal of food security after this break. Stay tuned. Thank you for being there. Let's also find out how Enugu State is faring before we bring in our guests to continue the conversation. Well, the state, talking about Enugu State, is still awaiting the arrival of the 20 trucks of rice. but the state government says it has already put in place plans on how to distribute the palliatives to the designated vulnerable persons. The State Commissioner for Information, Abakar, disclosed this. Let's hear from Yokeria Ugo.
Amidst various economic reforms and committees set up to see to the proper implementation, the federal government has been distributing cash and food palliatives to the poorest of the poor. Although Enugu State is yet to receive its consignment of rice, the State Commissioner of Information says the state government is optimistic about its arrival in due course.
When the palliatives arrive, we will distribute it to those who are vulnerable. We don't just distribute it to anybody, because this had been done before. There's a strategy, a model that we had to use to distribute this so that it can get to those who are properly designated to receive them.
Residents in the state as well as indigents have been urged to exercise patience as the federal government means well for the masses. In Enugu, Yokeria, NTA News.
All right, Mr. Kabiru Ibrahim, you just saw Enugu State's perspective there, but this food palliative could be termed as short-term intervention. For long-term, when we're talking food security, we've seen the federal government's intervention. We've seen provision of seedlings to farmers, fertilizer, distribution of fertilizer, and also grant to small-scale farmers. But at the state level, what is the Farmers Association getting, the kind of intervention and support? What are you getting from the state?
Well, so many states, luckily, are now really waking up to their responsibilities. Even from here in Abuja, at the office of the Federal Minister of, the Minister of Agriculture and Food Security had been receiving many governors coming to pay homage and saying that they would really take up the issue of food security. And we have seen a lot of efforts on that. All these governments, state governments that you mentioned have been helping in the palliative are also known to have helped in helping the farmers with fertilizers and other inputs. So we see a really remarkable improvement on what used to happen. The state governors are now keen on this because you remember at the beginning of the year or late last year, in some states there were even protests because of the food price hike. So I think everybody is waking up, and we encourage all those that are not up yet to wake up, because governance will not be easy if the citizens are very hungry. You will not be able to govern them. People will be very irrational if they are very hungry, if they cannot afford any food. So the farmers are ready to work assiduously to produce the food that is required. But like Oliver Twist, we are asking for good seeds, access to credit, mechanization, access to science and technology, and security. Because in so many of the places, our farmers cannot seamlessly go to their farms because of insecurity. So a lot of work has to be done to tame or to stem insecurity in Nigeria. In fact, what I will suggest today is that we take all those so-called food baskets of some competencies, i.e., if you know a region, take Kaduna. Kaduna is the actually corn country in Nigeria, Kaduna State. So around Birningwari, for instance, where a lot of maize would be produced, but because of insecurity, people are not going. So the president should task the law enforcement officers, give them timeline, make sure that you secure this place and all the farmers are able to produce optimally. If you go to Katsina State also, there are areas where, like Nandume and all that, where you have a lot of corn coming out, but because of insecurity, people are not able to go to their farms. Put task force there. Also, make sure that the president should charge them. Look, after 4 weeks, come and tell me that everybody is happy there. And then the traditional rulers should also be involved. Come and tell me what is happening in your domain. That kind of approach might solve the problem somewhat. Because we know all these areas where production is very high and people are not able to go seamlessly. So you ensure that people go and you get this. Because the food security situation is very, very important.
Okay, Mr. Ibrahim, and we must commend the federal government. Not too long, we had the approval by the president on 150 duty-free importation maize is among brown husk rice, and also wheat is among that aspect. But on a final note, these trucks, talking about the 20 loads of rice, will continuously, some states have not received, some will receive in this coming week. What are you envisaging, beyond this? How do you think this will definitely impact vulnerable groups across the country?
Well, you see, the situation is very dire now. That is why every effort is required. But certainly, yes, it's a stopgap. For sustainable food security, you need to be sure that you scale productivity in country. No country will just depend on, maybe importing or giving palliatives to be able to have sustainable food security. It's not possible.
Yeah.
In fact, why we support the idea of even importation is that it is for a given time, 150 days or 5 months, and the quantity is also mentioned, so that our farmers will also be encouraged to continue to produce, so that you have sustainable food security. But this happens even in the United States, that has been food secure for a long time. When there are problems like this, people are now allowed to import things that they already had comparative advantage in. But every country in the world must import something. Whatever it is, they must import something. And this is why you have you call the world a global village. But what you have comparative advantage in, you scale up the productivity so that you become a net exporter of that.
Okay.
And this is what we expect for Nigeria.
Indeed, sustenance of food productivity is very key if we're talking food security. Thank you so much, Mr. Kabiru Ibrahim. He's the president of Farmers Association of Nigeria. Thank you for your time on Weekend File.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
And keep up the good work with the farmers.
Thank you.
All right. Let's take a break. We're back in a moment. Thank you for staying tuned. On a global scene, we hear irregular migrants arriving at the Canary Islands in Spain have increased, according to data from European Border Control Agency, as coastal erosion has put much of eastern England's property on the verge of disappearance. Here is Kulu Mohammed with details.
The number of migrants arriving irregularly by sea to the Canary Island in the Atlantic Ocean rose by 160% between January and July 15 from a year ago, totaling almost 20,000 people, according to Spain's Interior Ministry. Overall, arrivals by sea to Spain, including across the mainland, grew by 88% to around 25,300 people. After reaching the beach, lined with hotels, many of the migrants lay on the sand, looking frail and exhausted. One lay flat and almost motionless, and another struggled to work. According to the latest data from European Border Control Agency, the route from Africa to Canary Island in Spain is the fastest growing migrant route in Europe. As Eastern England is the worst hit by coastal erosion, as it is estimated that 8,900 properties in England are at risk of disappearing before long, as shores erode rapidly and the land collapses into the sea. Coastal erosion is a natural process, particularly along English soft coast. Experts, however, blame global warming for accelerating the phenomenon. It is based on recent surveys that a more adaptation-focused approach is the ultimate solution. The UK government's coastal management strategy changed this year from investing in sea defenses towards relocating communities at risk. And passenger crowds had swelled at airports on Friday to wait for news as dozens of flights were cancelled, and operators struggled to keep services on track after an update to a program operating on Microsoft Windows crashed systems worldwide. Multiple U.S. airlines and airports across Asia said they were now resuming operations, with check-in services restored in Hong Kong, South Korea, and Thailand. There are no long queues at airports like it was experienced a day or two ago. Kolo Muhammad, NTA News.
From the world of sports, as the 2024 Olympics approaches, Paris, the capital of France, is not leaving anything to chance in its preparation to stage one of the most significant global sporting event, which promises to be a unique spectacle, captivating audiences in various ways. Francis Farm reports that in a bid to provide clients and relevant stakeholders with timely insights for more informed planning and decision-making, a pre-Olympic survey was recently conducted by the OMD Consumer Intelligence in collaboration with Joe Paul. Here is the report of the findings.
The study aims to uncover pertinent consumer insights surrounding the upcoming global event. These are anticipated shifts in media consumption patterns and potential opportunities for brands. The survey, which spans 4 African countries, Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, and Tanzania, also explores interest in the event, viewer preferences for various sports and programming, betting trends, and public perception of the event, cultural and social impact. The findings reveal a robust interest among Africans, with a significant percentage rating their interest at highest level. Here are the findings. First, general interest. 7 out of 10 Nigerians expressed a high interest in following the Olympics, and 97% say they intend to watch the games. Favorite sports. Football stands out as the event respondents are most interested in watching. Similarly, viewing times. Viewership is projected to increase throughout the day, with respondents saying they are most likely to watch in the evening from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. In terms of anticipated category behavior, the survey also identified opportunities for brands as viewers intend to upgrade data plans, socialize with friends, engage in sports betting, and alcohol consumption, among other activities. From the report, respondents believe the Olympics has a cultural and social impact in their countries. These findings underscore the immense enthusiasm Africans have for the Olympics, which showcase a wide array of sports. Francis from NTA News.
And let's get more news on Sports Update. A philanthropist, the people's general and selfless in service, were encomiums used to describe late member representing Chikun Kajuru Federal Constituency, Ekene Abakar Adams, by his friends and colleagues during a funeral service for the deceased at St. Anthony of Padua Catholic Church on Wanromi in Chikun local government area of Kaduna State. Haruna Mohammed reports that the late Ekene was laid to rest at his residence at Bagi village.
Bagi Villa, a Chikun local government area of Kaduna State, stood still as family members, political associates, and sympathizers from all walks of life trooped in to pay their last respect to an icon, the tribalized Nigerian, and a man who devoted his life to the service of humanity, putting smiles on the faces of the downtrodden. In a sermon to the congregation, Reverend Father Bitrus Dawa, who described death as not the end of life, admonished Christians to be courageous as it is a transition to eternal life that every soul must pass through. Ekene was laid to rest at his residence as family members, colleagues, and close associates took turns to eulogize him for his sterling qualities.
He has left a very big shoe, anybody that is coming in to replace those shoes have a big task.
Ekene is one person that has played a very vital role, somebody we cannot just forget in a haste.
Born on the 16th of April 1985, Ekene Abakar Adams was a humanitarian, former professional footballer, and an entrepreneur. Until his death, he was the member representing Chukun Kajuru Federal Constituency and the chairman House Committee on Sports. Ekene died after a protracted illness, leaving behind his wife, 3 children, aged parents, and many relatives. Haruna Mohammed, NTA News.
May his soul rest in peace. And that's Weekend File. Thank you for your time. I'm Ruth Aguele. Good night.